so I will abide these rules. So I'm here and ready to educate you and cultivate your understanding of belonging in order to help you in your HSC. The texts I chose from the back of the list are Migrant Hostel by Mr. Peter Shinesky, which is a poem, and The Rainbow Fish by Marcus Pfister, which is a picture book.
Rainbow Fish.
And of course, The Crucible by Mr. Arthur Miller. So I began to read. I read the two texts furiously and numerously, and I began to see the concept of belonging in each respective text, and I will use it today as an example. So firstly, I questioned myself. Well, what is belonging? I knew what it was, and I knew what it felt like, but it was hard for me to explain it in words alone. So if someone came up to you and asked you, what is belonging? Define belonging for me. I'm sure most of you wouldn't be able to define it clearly. But luckily for me, I had Google. So I Googled, what is belonging? It said, belonging is an innate desire of human condition. A sense of belonging emerges from the connections made with people, places, groups, communities, and the larger world. So to me, that just basically means you fit in. I see belonging complementary to not belonging, as one cannot occur with the other. For example, if you were to not belong, you'd belong to a group of people who didn't belong, right? So one can belong to groups, people, places, communities, etc. But one can also be rejected from those same groups, communities. So, and what I also realized while reading my text was when there was a topic of the concept of belonging was usually associated with positive and collective words, while on the other hand, not belonging was associated with negative words. So, with the aforementioned texts, the notion of belonging is pretty clear. Migrant Hostel, the poem, deals with displacement and alienation. The Rainbow Fish shows that belonging is in fact a shared phenomenon. The Crucible shows how society treats those who don't and do belong. So first I'd like to talk about Migrant Hostel. After reading the first stanza, it was pretty evident that it's centralized on not belonging. Peter Shinesky uses literary devices and relevant vocabulary with a personal voice to complement his sense. So pretty much Migrant Hostel describes thousands of migrants coming to Australia after World War II. I did some background research on Mr. Peter Shinesky and I found out that he is also a migrant. So he's able to relate and reflect his feelings of alienation as he was and not belonging as a migrant himself. So I want you to imagine you by yourself in another country, and you would, without knowing anything, and you couldn't speak the language, so there was a language barrier. You're being forced to live with other people you have never met before. Obviously, you feel pretty alienated and that you don't belong. So in the opening stanza, the first stanza of Migrant Hostel, there are a few words which caught my eye. Comings and goings, newcomers, busloads, sudden departures. They all show a transitory environment, right? Which migrants would obviously experience. So Peter Shinesky uses these words to convey dislocation. The words comings and goings shows that there is uncertainty in their lives. The two words are also contrasted to imply no permanence, so that it's only a temporary environment, showing they don't belong. There's also a simile which also caught my eye. Like a homing pigeon circling to get its bearings. This creates a sense of disorientation, which migrants may feel at a hostel. As they eventually do get their bearings, they find out that they are alike. The migrants find out that they are alike. So, in a way, they are less isolated and feel less displaced. This is supported by the quotes, years and place names recognized by accents. So Peter Shinesky uses these techniques. He shows that these migrants, they associate themselves by identifying that they are indeed from the same place, and they show that they belong. So overall, the poem had a depressing tone, which was reinforced by the description of the hostel. It was pretty ironic.
Yeah, that's fine.
The hostel represents a fresh start, as they have just migrated to a new country. But it's described to be prison-like, which shows that belonging and not belonging in a way are interrelated. On to my second text, the rainbow fish. Upon reading it, the concept of belonging was clear and axiomatic. It depicts that belonging can emanate from a variety of relationships. In the story, the fish are unique in the sense that they are all different shapes and sizes. They're even joined by other sea creatures like an octopus and a starfish. This shows that belonging is developed through connections and relations. So in the story, the rainbow fish is seen celebrity-like. He has shiny, beautiful scales. All the other fish envy him. At first, the rainbow fish was always asked to come join in with the other fish, but he simply rejected them, gliding past proud in silence. This shows that the rainbow fish had no close relation with the other fish, which therefore means he did not belong and was unassociated. At one point, a little fish had went up to the rainbow fish and told him and had asked him for one scale. The rainbow fish had told him to get away and swam away. After this, the little fish had told every other fish, and they began to despise him and see him indifferently. So the rainbow fish began to excogitate and thought there was no point in having these beautiful scales if there was no one to admire them. So in the end, he did give every fish one of his scales until he had one left. He now felt that he belonged and was now accepted. So in the story, there's a transition of not belonging to belonging. It's also accentuated by the rainbow fish's positioning respective to the page. In the first few pages, he is either alone or he is seen facing away from the other fish. As he starts to give his scales one by one, he is seen turning and eventually is face to face with the fish. The colouring of the scales is also important, and I see it relevant to belonging. Because the colour of his scale, the shiny scales, also the colour, are a combination of the colours of the other monochromatic fish, or in other words, the single coloured fish. This implies that there is something common in everyone, and in some way we all belong to each other. Now the last text, the crucible where I come from, I recall moments where I did belong. It was a very pleasant feeling, and I can empathize on the rainbow fish when he did finally feel accepted. I remember being invited by Mr. Paris to confirm that his daughter was not in fact touched by the devil. The second I walked into Salem, I felt like I had belonged. I was greeted by Mr. Paris with a, "Mr. Hale, it's good to see you again." Everyone had seen me as the saviour of Salem. Despite being from Beverly, I was recognized and felt like I had also belonged to Salem. But after this, I thought that I also didn't belong in some places. I also felt that I wasn't the only one to feel like I had belonged as I reread the play. So not long after I had felt like I belonged, I realized I had succumbed to my honesty. This is the scene this is in Act 3 and 4, where my conscience begins to alienate me from Salem. After that, I didn't feel like I wanted to belong, but only to save lives. I also read the play and saw that Abigail was also someone who was alienated from Salem. To me, she seemed like one of the most alienated characters. She was an outcast who didn't belong, but wanted to belong. This was illustrated through her cry, "I am a good girl, a proper girl. She made me do it." This sense of wanting to belong is also present in her affair with John Proctor. She sees the only way to belong to the society is to be his wife, and hence she tried to kill Elizabeth, so she could marry John and therefore belong. Thank you for your attention. It was a pleasure educating you. Good luck in your HSC. Now I'm off to where I belong.